Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're going to explore something that affects almost every single one of us, yet it's rarely understood at a mechanical, biological level. For this explainer, we are unpacking the hard science behind love, desire, and attachment. We're going to deconstruct the actual neural architecture of what makes a relationship last, drawing straight from some totally fascinating data on how our brains quite literally synchronize with the people we love most. So if you've ever wondered what actually holds a bond together when that initial spark fades away, you are definitely in the right place. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of the mechanisms, I want to ask you something directly. Does lasting love require self-deception? I want you to really think about that for a second. We're so often told that healthy relationships are built on total unflinching honesty, right? Seeing things exactly as they are. But what if the data tells a completely different, totally counterintuitive story? What if a little bit of irrationality is actually the secret ingredient to stability?
Section 1. The secret of self-deception.
When researchers actually look at the most successful, long-lasting couples, they don't just find, great communication skills. They find that these couples share a highly unique neural circuit. And the circuit is based on a psychological concept called the positive delusion. Basically, it's the irrational belief that only your specific partner could ever make you feel this way. So the crucial point is this. This delusion isn't about being literally blind to reality. It's not about ignoring massive red flags. Rather, it's about your brain creating a deeply stable internal representation of your partner as absolutely essential. It's the total conviction that they are categorically more desirable than anyone else in the world and uniquely capable of fulfilling you.
Section 2. The 3 neural pillars.
To understand how this delusion actually works in practice, we've got to look at the underlying biology. Because love isn't just this fleeting, abstract feeling that comes and goes. The source material reveals that it's actually a beautifully coordinated song of multiple brain areas working together to hold the relationship intact. This neural architecture rests on a specific foundation of 3 neural pillars. First, we have the autonomic seesaw. Second, the empathy matching system. And third, positive delusions. When these 3 pillars are strong and working in harmony, man, you have a bond that is incredibly resilient. Let's break down exactly what these first 2 pillars look like in action.
Beneath everything in your relationship is your autonomic nervous system, and it acts just like a seesaw. In a healthy dynamic, your partner's autonomic seesaw actually helps drive yours. This leads to a state of incredible autonomic coordination. Literally, just by listening to the same personal narrative, your heart rates can synchronize. On the flip side, an inverted seesaw means you are actively dissociating your physiology from theirs. But when things are healthy, your bodies are quite literally vibrating at the exact same frequency. Which leads perfectly into the second pillar, empathy. We usually just think of empathy as being a good listener, but neurologically speaking, it is so much more than that. It is a highly active neural matching system. It's the process of perceiving the internal state of another person, and then making a neurological decision to match your own autonomic tone to theirs. You are choosing to align your internal world with your partner's.
And what's really fascinating is that our ability to form these stable neural matches doesn't just, magically appear out of nowhere in adulthood. The source data points out that adult romantic stability actually connects all the way back to early childhood. Psychologists observed this in the classic strange situation task, which assesses early childhood attachment styles. Those early templates actually predict how effectively we'll be able to synchronize and stabilize our romantic relationships decades later. Section 3. The power of positive delusion. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how all of this builds into our third and arguably most fascinating pillar. While autonomic syncing and empathy are crucial, the data shows that this third pillar is actually the most surprising predictor of whether an attachment will truly survive over the long haul. The literal physical effect this delusion has on the brain is just incredible. When you cultivate this positive delusion, it actively decreases brain activation in the areas responsible for assessing the attractiveness of other people. Let that sink in. It literally shields your relationship. Your brain's tendency to even notice other attractive alternatives is significantly dampened because your neural circuitry has decided, yep, your partner is the ultimate essential choice. Section 4. The 4 Horsemen threat. Let, of course, this beautiful, coordinated song of the brain is delicate. If we don't actively protect the architecture, it's going to collapse under what are famously known as the 4 horsemen of relationship failure: criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt. When these behaviors enter the dynamic, they actively dismantle everything we just talked about. They destroy autonomic coordination. They completely shut down the empathy matching system. They pull you right out of sync. And among these 4, one is particularly devastating. Contempt is the sulfuric acid of relationships. It is the absolute antithesis of the positive delusion. Instead of seeing your partner as uniquely amazing and essential, contempt makes you look at them as someone beneath consideration or even someone you despise. This creates that total inversion of the autonomic seesaw we talked about earlier. You are actively dissociating your physiology from theirs, essentially burning down the bridge of attachment.
Section 5. Actionable tools for connection.
So, how do we fight back? How do we build that positive delusion and protect against the sulfuric acid of contempt? Fortunately, the science actually gives us solutions. Highly actionable protocols you can use to intentionally synchronize your physiologies. The first really powerful tool is what the research calls the self-expansion narrative. This involves actively making your partner feel emotionally and psychologically filled up. You do this by praising them and validating how vital they are to a relationship that is exciting, novel, and challenging. When people hear this from their partner, their brain's wandering eye literally decreases. You are actively reinforcing their status as uniquely essential.
Another incredible protocol is the famous 36 questions exercise, and this brilliantly illustrates the mechanics of empathy we discussed. You sit down and move through progressively deeper questions. You might start with something like, what would constitute a perfect day? And eventually, you're sharing your most embarrassing moments. This forces a shared perceptual and emotional experience. As a result of this narrative exchange, your heart rates literally fall into a similar pattern, building a biological bond that transcends simple language.
Section 6. The Scientist of One. Understanding all of these mechanisms, the seesaw, the empathy matching, the positive delusions, it gives you incredible agency to actively steer your relationship's neurological architecture. I want to challenge you to take these insights into the real world with a specific experiment you can try this week, based directly on our source data. First, sit down with your partner and put the phones away for a full hour. No distractions. Second, tell them specifically why they're essential to the life you're building together. Feed that self-expansion narrative. And third, simply notice the internal shift. Pay attention to how that shared narrative shifts your internal state, your autonomic seesaw and theirs. Observe the physiological changes in real time.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Knowing that lasting attachment relies on a shared, deeply cultivated positive delusion, what reality are you actively building with your partner today? Every conversation, every shared narrative, every moment of empathy is a brick in your relationship's neural architecture. Build it with intention. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep exploring.